Around the World Lit Audio. The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. Part 1. Week 5. Chapters 13 to 15. Full narration script. Channel intro. Welcome to Around the World Lit Audio, the greatest novels ever written, from every corner of the world, in English. New chapter every week. Free to listen. Chapter recap. In week 4, the black magic show at the VARIET took place. Money rained from the ceiling. A Parisian fashion boutique appeared on stage. When the compeer Bengalski interrupted one too many times, Walland asked the audience what should be done. Someone said, "Take his head off." Walland said, "Excellent suggestion." The head was removed, said "Please," and was replaced. The dresses from the boutique evaporated the next morning. The money turned into foreign currency. Moscow was enchanted and confused in equal measure. Part 1. Chapters 13 through 15. Part 1. Chapter 13. The hero appears. In the psychiatric hospital, in the room next to Ivan homeless, there was a man. The man had been there for some time. He was quiet, quieter than most of the hospital's residents, with the quality of someone who has arranged themselves to take up as little space as possible in the world, not from timidity but from a kind of deliberate withdrawal. He read. He slept. He spoke to the doctors with the cooperative minimum that the institution required and did not volunteer anything beyond that minimum. His name was the Master. Ivan had been told this already, had been told in their first conversation, through the window, on the night Ivan arrived. But that conversation had been brief and disorienting, and Ivan had been feverish and medicated, and now, weeks later, the two of them had developed the kind of adjacency that shared walls produce, an awareness of each other's rhythms, a mutual recognition that neither was quite like the other residents, a cautious interest. The Master came through the connecting door one evening and sat in Ivan's room. He said, "I have been thinking about what you told me about the man at Patriarch's Ponds." Ivan said, "Yes." The Master said, "I want to tell you something about why I am here. Not the official reason. The official reason is that I had a breakdown, which is true. But the reason for the breakdown," he told him. He had been a historian, a man of learning, of research, of the patient assembly of evidence into argument. Some years before, he had won a lottery, a large sum, enough to change his life, which it did. He had rented 2 rooms in a basement apartment in a small lane near the Arbat. He had begun to write. The novel was about Pontius Pilate. He had become obsessed with the figure, the Roman governor, who had stood across from Yeshua HaNazri on a spring morning in Jerusalem and had been moved by him, and had condemned him anyway. The cowardice of that moment. The specific quality of a man who sees the right thing to do and does not do it because the cost is too high. He wrote and wrote. The novel consumed him, not unpleasantly, but totally, in the way that complete absorption in something consumes a person who has found, for the first time, the thing they were made to do. And then he met her. He did not say her name. He had said this before, that he could not yet bring himself to say her name. But he described her, a woman carrying yellow flowers in early spring, on a street in Moscow. Flowers so yellow they were almost aggressive against the gray of the city. She looked at him. He looked at her. Something happened that he described with the economy of a man reporting a fact. They fell in love, immediately, completely, in the way that happens rarely, and, when it happens, cannot be argued with. She was married. It was complicated. She did not care, and he did not care, and neither complication changed what had happened between them. She read the manuscript as he wrote it. She was the first reader, the only reader, the reader for whom he understood only later the book had really been written. She called him the Master. Not his name. His name meant nothing in this context, but the Master, the one title that contained what he actually was. He finished the novel. He submitted it to a literary journal. The journal did not publish it. Instead, reviews appeared, not of the published novel, because it had not been published, but of the manuscript, which had circulated somehow. The reviews were devastating, not in the way of honest criticism, which can be survived and even learned from, but in the way of politically motivated destruction, the kind of reviewing that is not about literature at all but about the elimination of a person from the acceptable landscape of Soviet culture. He burned the manuscript. He said this to Ivan the way you say something that is still not entirely real. I burned it. Ivan said, "All of it." He said, "All of it." I threw it in the stove and watched it burn. Then I had a breakdown. Then I came here. He looked at his hands. He said, "But what I did not know, what I only understood later, is that manuscripts do not burn." Not really. The words are still there. In me, in the stranger who told me the story in the first place, which is to say, in the story itself. You cannot burn a true story. He said this last part quietly, with the particular certainty of someone who has tested the proposition and found it true. Ivan looked at him. He said, "Who told you the story?" The Master said, "I think you know." Part 1, Chapter 14. Glory to the cock. Moscow was not handling the aftermath of the VARIET show well. The money had turned into foreign currency, dollars and francs and marks, appearing from wallets and purses with the inexplicability of things that were not there, and then were. The dresses had disappeared. Women, who had exchanged their clothing for Parisian fashions, in the boutique had found themselves, in the cold morning air, dressed in nothing or dressed in the original clothes, the boutique having been as real as a dream and as substantial. The complaints arrived at the relevant authorities in the particular form that complaints arrive in Soviet Moscow, through official channels, with official language, requiring official responses. The authorities investigated. The investigation produced, as investigations in such circumstances tend to produce, more questions than answers. Wallen's name began to appear in reports. Rimsky, the financial director of the VARIET, had filed his own report, a careful, detailed document describing what he had witnessed, including the behavior of the stage manager Veronika, who had returned from his strange absence, in a state that Rimsky could not describe except to say that something was wrong with him, in ways that resisted precise articulation. Rimsky himself was in a poor state. He had spent the night after the show in his office, unwilling to go home, unwilling to explain why he was unwilling to go home. He had sat at his desk through the night with the lights on and had seen things, or had almost seen things, which was worse, and when morning came he had gone to the railway station, and taken the first train to Leningrad, where he had family, and where he intended to stay until Moscow became a city he recognized again. The investigation continued without him. Various witnesses were interviewed. Various accounts were compared. The accounts did not cohere, not because the witnesses were lying but because what they had witnessed did not fit into the categories available to the investigators, and when experience does not fit available categories, the accounts that describe it become, inevitably, inconsistent. The officials noted that a professor of black magic named Walland had performed at the VARIET. They noted that his papers were in order. They noted that his current whereabouts were unknown. They noted that apartment 50 on Sadovaya Street had a history of making its inhabitants unavailable. They sent investigators to apartment 50. The investigators knocked on the door. A voice from inside said, "Come in." They came in. What happened to the investigators in apartment 50 was not recorded in the official reports, because the investigators did not file official reports about it. What was recorded was that they left the building in a condition of considerable agitation and did not return. Moscow continued to try to understand what was happening to it. It was not succeeding. Part 1, Chapter 15, The Dream of Nikanor Ivanovich. Nikanor Ivanovich Bosoy was the chairman of the residence committee of the building that contained apartment 50 on Sadovaya Street. He was a solid, competent man with the particular combination of bureaucratic authority and personal modesty that his position required, someone who understood that managing a building's residence committee was not a glamorous occupation, and had made his peace with this understanding. He kept records. He attended meetings. He resolved disputes with the particular patience of a man who has learned that most disputes, given sufficient patience, resolve themselves. He had been approached by Koroviv. Koroviv had appeared at his office, the checkered jacket, the cracked pince-nez, the air of finding everything enormously funny, and had explained that a foreign professor was staying in apartment 50 and required the necessary documentation for his residency. The foreign currency that Koroviv had produced in connection with this request, rubles converted to dollars at a rate that was entirely illegal, had disappeared into Nikanor Ivanovich's pocket with the smooth efficiency of a transaction that both parties preferred not to examine too closely. Nikanor Ivanovich had gone home. He had not felt well. The currency situation troubled him, not for moral reasons, because morality in this specific context was complicated, but for practical ones. He had foreign currency in his possession. Foreign currency in Soviet Moscow in 1930 was not something a residence committee chairman wanted to have in his possession without a very good explanation. He was arrested that evening. The arrest was of the routine Soviet variety, quiet, efficient, with the particular quality of a system that has perfected the mechanics of apprehending people, without drawing unnecessary attention to the apprehension. He was taken to the relevant facility. He was questioned about the foreign currency. He said it was not his, it had been given to him. He had not understood what it was. He had intended to report it. The investigators received this account with the polite skepticism of people who have heard many accounts, and found most of them constructed after the fact. Nikanor Ivanovich was put in a room. He was given something to help him sleep, because he was agitated, and sleep was considered beneficial in his circumstances. He slept. He dreamed. He dreamed he was in a theater, a large, beautiful theater, full of well-dressed people, with a stage and footlights and the particular atmosphere of an occasion. On the stage stood a man who was conducting something that was partly a performance and partly an interrogation, asking questions of the audience about foreign currency, about where it had come from and where it was going, in the particular tone of a man who knows the answers, and is interested in whether the people being asked know them too. The dream had the quality of all significant dreams, more real than ordinary reality, with a clarity that ordinary reality cannot sustain. The questions were real. The answers were real. The theater was real. Nikanor Ivanovich sat in the audience and sweated, and felt, even in sleep, the specific discomfort of a man whose secrets have become visible. He woke before the questions reached him. He lay in the facilities room, and looked at the ceiling and understood that his situation was not improving. In apartment 50, the lights were on all night. The city outside moved through its darkness, large and indifferent, carrying its secrets the way all cities carry their secrets, inside millions of people who have decided, for their own reasons, not to speak. Chapter Transition. You have reached the end of Part 1, Chapters 13 through 15 of The Master and Margarita, by Mikhail Bulgakov. In the next episode we reach the end of Part 1, and the beginning of Part 2, the half of the novel where Margarita herself steps forward, where the love story at the center of everything becomes visible, and where Wallen makes the offer that will change everything. The ball is coming, and Margarita is going to be its queen. The next episode is available next week. Subscribe to Around the World Lit Audio so you never miss a chapter. A new episode arrives every week.